First of all, happy Father's Day.
Father's Day to you.
Thank you. What a glorious day to be able to do this. So, as a child, I never really fully grasped the understanding of what it was like or what it would be like to be a father. I have a man that I looked up to, that I highly looked up to. And this man was there at every performance I had when I was with junior ROTC in high school. This man was there at my graduation from high school. He was there at my graduation from college. He was there at the graduation from the Marine Corps boot camp at Parris Island. And he was the man that was there and took part in my wedding. And I had the privilege to call him Dad. He was not perfect. He had his faults. But he was a man that I looked up to highly. And I'm glad that I had him in my life. Because he was the man that I could call Dad. As I look at the lesson that we have set for this morning, I don't know that it'll be as emotional as I was for Mother's Day. But I will probably be just a little bit emotional because I've learned that sometimes we're our own worst critic. You ever believe that? Usually we'll do something and we'll think, man, that was the dumbest thing I've ever done. And somebody will come along and they'll say, man, that was pretty good. I like that. And you're trying to figure out, okay, how did I skip over and how did that not turn out bad type situation? I've preached sermons that I thought were as boring as all get out as I'm preaching them. I'm not thinking, man, if the preacher's bored, how bad is the congregation? And I've had people come out and say, preacher, I needed that, thank you. And I'm thinking, did we hear the same sermon? Were you listening to me? As a father, I'm probably even more of my own worst critic. Because there are moments in my life that I look back on and I think, man, I blew that one. I could have utilized that opportunity. Am I the only one that's like that? Other fathers, did y'all look back on moments and go, man, I could have done better at that point? I want to give 3 things that I've learned. And keeping in context with our theme for June of salvation. But these are 3 things that I've learned as a father that I don't know that I have passed them on well. But I hope I have. I asked earlier, if y'all remember the TV show, Father Knows Best. Robert Young is the actor of the father. It was a unique show because the family always had some really interesting things happen of which they had to go to their father and they had to get advice at times. And it was just really a unique show. I hear people all the time say, well, real families aren't like that. I don't know about that. There were some other families that I thought, yeah, okay, that's more TV than it is realistic. But Father Knows Best was one of those that I look back on my family and I think, you know, when I needed advice, I didn't go to my friends. I went to my dad. And so I looked at it, most of the times he had the best advice anyway. So I want us to think about that as we look at our lesson this morning. Father knows best. Now we can look at God, and of course we're going to go right into that one, obviously. We can look at God, and we know God knows best. He's given us His Word. He's shown us what we need in this life. He's shown us how we need to live. He's shown us all the aspects that there is to life. So yeah, we can definitely look at that and go, oh, yeah, Father knows best. But then we earthly fathers, we look at ourselves and we look at each other and we quite often shake our heads. Man, I've had some people in my life that I've seen that I thought, either one, you had a really bad father, or two, you had no father at all. Because the decisions they were making and the things that they were doing just made absolutely no sense whatsoever. And then I've seen some people that have done some amazing things, and I thought, you had somebody behind you that was cheering you on. My dad was my greatest cheerleader I ever had. He supported me in whatever we had to do and whatever I did in life. He was there. He was behind me 100%. And I needed that. I remember at times I would call home and I would talk to Mom, but I always wanted to talk to Dad too. I never hung up the phone without speaking to Dad. I never hung up the phone without speaking to Mom either. Because I knew what was going to happen. Next time I called, I was going to get an earful from one of them, whichever one I forgot to talk to the last time. But I never missed opportunity. I would call home. I'd find out how things were. There was one time I called home and I was talking to Mom, and I asked Mom, I said, how's Dad doing? And she said, he's doing okay. And I said, what's that mean? And she said, well, Dennis, what you don't understand is your dad will never cry in public, right? And I was like, yeah. She says, yeah. He cries when nobody else is watching. And I said, really? And she said, yeah. He says he also makes sure that when he's crying, he's in an area where he can say, oh, I just got water in my face. I thought that was kind of funny, personally. But that was Dad. Dad was a unique individual. He was a self-taught architect, and he was good at it. I was going through some stuff, and I ran across a notebook the other day, and I started flipping through it, and I stopped. Because the designs of architecture were in it for houses that he had designed that were built in South Carolina. And he took us on a trip one time to Columbia. And we got to go through Columbia, South Carolina, and these various places. And he showed us some of the houses that he actually designed that they built in these neighborhoods. It was really neat. Fathers know best. Ephesians chapter 6, starting at verse 1. Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Honor your father and mother, which is the first commandment with promise, that it may be well with you and you may live long on the earth. And you fathers, do not provoke your children to wrath, but bring them up in the training and admonition of the Lord. Number one issue in today's society is the father is absent in the family. I am a firm believer that a child needs both father and mother to have a rounded understanding of what it means to grow up. I believe that the father that is not in the home is a father that probably doesn't understand what it means to be a father. Why do I say that? Because children need to understand both sides of parenthood. They need to be able to see father and they need to see mother. The Bible doesn't speak of one being the only one that raises a family. In Proverbs chapter 31, we find that it talks about the mother. You know, we call that one about the woman. But in Deuteronomy, it talks about the father. It takes both to raise the family. And in that, they see both sides of it. And they have a better understanding of life. The absence of the father has destroyed some of our society's moral and ethical understandings. But it's not just the absence of the father in the family. It's the absence of the father in the family.
Amen.
And when we do not have God in a family, the family has no clue or understanding to what morals are or what ethics really mean. And it really can cause some serious issues. And look at our society today. One of the things that my father made sure I understood was taking responsibility. Didn't always do that. And I'll be the first one to tell you, I didn't always take responsibility. I blamed others for things. But sometimes we just need to say, you know what, that's on me. I did that. That's my fault. And our children need to see it. I grew up at a time where it was believed that the father wasn't supposed to show emotion, because if he shows emotion, then that shows that he's weak. I firmly believe a father that shows emotion to his children is probably giving them a rounded understanding of what it means to be a man. Because we have emotions. And it's sad the way people have stereotyped fathers. Because fathers are some of the most emotional individuals I've ever seen in my life. And to be honest with you, I think if you really look at the dynamic, fathers may be more emotional than mothers in some cases. Just saying. Here are the 3 things that I've learned about fathers. Y'all ready? These are the 3 things that I firmly believe we need to understand and we need to be able to teach our children properly. All right? Number 1, fathers need to be able to teach their children what it means to work hard. In 2 Thessalonians chapter 3 and verse 10, it teaches us that a man should not eat if he does not work. One of the greatest detriments we have today is people are afraid to work. I'm just going to put it out there. They don't want to work. It's not that they're afraid of it. They don't want to work. They want everything handed to them. I remember even as a child growing up, I remember when I got to a certain age, I didn't want to work. I had to learn what it meant to work. I had to learn what it meant to deal with things. Now, I will say that I have a strong work ethic. And it's not because of me that I have a strong work ethic. It's because of what I was taught growing up of what it meant to work. And why you did work. And what it was in doing that. But our society today, people aren't taught what it means to work. They aren't taught that it's important to work. It's a lot easier just to have a handout and go on about your daily life. People have disagreed with me on this, and that's fine. You can disagree with me if you do. But I think if you honestly look at it, one of the worst situations we had in our society was when the government decided to put people on welfare. We're going to take care of people. Well, here's the issue with welfare. Number 1, it took away from the church because the church was told to take care of people. And now we don't have to. The government's going to do it. We don't have to do it. And so we obviously at that point don't have an understanding really of what it meant to take care of the orphans and widows as the scriptures teach us to. Now we do, but I don't think we have as strong an understanding of it. But here's what welfare has done. Welfare has caused people not to want to work. Welfare has caused people not to go and do what needs to be done. If a man will not work, neither shall he eat, according to what we find Paul saying in 2 Thessalonians chapter 3, verse 10. What's Paul instilling? Paul's instilling hard work. When I do interviews, one of the major questions I ask in an interview, define a hard work ethic. Because what I'm finding is that people don't understand what it means to have a work ethic. Because they don't believe in having to work. You watch TV and you watch shows and these movies and everything that these young people are watching today, and their friends are, all these people are working, no they're not. They stand around, they talk about what they're doing at work, and then you never see them work. And so kids have this idea that when they get into the workforce, that's what it's like. You just get to stand around and talk, somebody pays you some money, and that is not the case. A lot of us grew up, and our parents eventually got to the point where they said, you want something, you buy it. And what'd that teach us?
We had to have money.
It taught us we had to have money. We needed to go get us a job. And we found out quickly that it's not easy doing some of these things. One of my first jobs was running a register at a drugstore, People's Drugs, in Newport News, Virginia. I'll be honest with you, I learned to hate running the register at People's Drugs. I hated doing it. But I needed the money. One of the next jobs I had, I loved. I became a bagger at Food Line, just down the road from our house. Loved it. I got to interact with people in a different way. I wasn't running a register. And I got to enjoy doing it. But I learned what it was to work. If I wanted something, I got to check. Mom and Dad told me, hey, go get it. Dad was one of those, though, that he taught me some greater values about working. And I appreciate what he taught me. Because the greater values he taught me, I've tried to pass on to my children. I don't know that I've succeeded in all aspects of working hard. Told Caleb after he got his job at Dollar General, I said, okay, Caleb, here's something I want you to think about. He's like, okay, what's that? I said, you get paid so much money an hour, right? And he's like, yeah. And I said, when you go to buy something, look at how much it is, because what you're going to find out is that it's going to cost you so much time working at that job to pay for that item. Case in point. Item costs you $20. He's like, yeah. And I said, how many hours is it going to take you to be able to have that? And he said, okay. And he understood. He comes back to me one day and we're talking, and this is what he learned. He looked at it and he says, Dad, I was looking at something and I looked at the price and I thought, that ain't worth that many hours of my life. It's a great way to look at it, isn't it? That's how you teach kids some things about working. How many hours are you going to have to give up in your life to be able to own that? Because kids don't think about it in that aspect. But it takes work to be able to have things. He wants a car. That's a lot of work right there. I'm not even going to tell him how many hours he's got to work to be able to get a car. He can figure that one up. He's smart. A work ethic. Fathers need to teach their children what it means to work hard. The second thing fathers need to teach their children is how to care for the family. In Deuteronomy chapter 6, verses 4 through 9, God is talking through Moses and he's telling Israel That when they lie down and when they go by the wayside and when they're eating and when they're sleeping, basically what he's telling them is, in every aspect of your life, you need to teach my word. One of the greatest things that a father can teach his children is God. You know what the problem is with that? A lot of fathers aren't teaching their children about God. One of the greatest detriments we can have in our society is a godless society. That's where we're headed. A godless society. Because here's the case. Christianity is being attacked right now. What happens when they finally get to the point where Christianity isn't the biggest thing they need to worry about, and they start looking at how they're going to get rid of all the other people that worship a deity and get them to shut up? Isn't it amazing? Nobody's ever apparently thought about that, have they? Yeah, they have. If we're wise and we're understanding. But here's the way you deal with that. You teach your children how to care for their family, because in caring for their family, they're going to teach God. Because you cannot teach care and love and compassion without teaching love and compassion that God has on us. You can't teach the truth about understanding of the things that people want and see in this world if they do not understand who created this world. And our fathers need to step up to the plate, and they need to teach their children what it means to care for the family. Again, this is one of those areas because my kids haven't gotten to the age where they're married and they're having their own kids. So I don't know if I've taught my children well enough in this, but I can only hope I have. Because if they do not teach God, then I failed. But if they teach them God, and they teach them that God is, and that God is a rewarder of those that diligently seek Him, and that God will help them, and that God, through Christ, has salvation for them, then I've done right. I have taught them properly. I can only hope I've taught my children well. But then comes probably the hardest thing for people to teach. Fathers need to teach their children how to be a Christian. Ephesians chapter 6 and verse 4. Bring them up in the training and admonition of the Lord. It goes back to the same part about caring for the family. Teaching God. Teaching God's way. I have failed. And I know people will look at me and say, man, you're just being too hard on yourself. I've been an example. At least I hope I have. But I feel like I failed at times. Because I have to ask, what does my family see as the most important thing? I have to ask, what does my family see as the one thing they're supposed to do and show and be? If a family is not Christ-centered, then fathers need to look at themselves and ask, where did I go wrong? If a family is more bogged down with issues of the world and less of the grace of God, it doesn't fall on God at this point. David was a man after God's own heart. But look at David's children. Was David truly what he needed to be for his sons? Because they fought each other, they fought him, they didn't follow God. I look quite often at times at David and I ask myself, is that the type of father I am? Is that the type of father that I've put everything else to be more important in my life than I did God? Because I can't blame the world if my sons do not know Christ. Now I can say this, my sons have all become Christians. I can say that. But have I taught them the rest of the story well enough that when they leave the home, they're going to carry on the things that have been taught and how God works in our lives? There's the key. What have I taught my children? Y'all heard me say this, and it's funny because of a conversation I had with an individual at one of the congregations I was working with. We were actually talking away from the congregation. We were just discussing some things, and I said something about, well, you know, tomorrow is Sunday, and I know we'll all be. And they said, oh yeah, you have to be. And I looked at them and I said, why do I have to be? And they said, well, you're the preacher. And I said, yes, I am, but why do I have to be? You see, I don't come to the church building at every opportunity I have because I have to. I come because I want to. And that want that I have is so strong that, yeah, it becomes a I have to be able to deal with that want. And when I'm not here, oh man, it kills me. But there's the question we have to ask ourselves. Do we want to be here, or do we make it a necessity without any true conviction? Oh, I got to go to church. Oh, I got to go do this. Have we made coming to the services of God like going to a job? Because there are days I wake up and I get ready to go to work and I look at it and I go, oh, I got to go to work. And y'all understand that because every one of you have done the exact same thing. Have we made coming to the services the same way? As a father, I hope I've instilled in my children not a necessity, but a desire of being with the saints. My question to you is, where are you with God? Because that's the most important question we can ask. Where are you with God? Are you walking with God daily? Are you walking with God sometimes, but not all the time? Are you not walking with God? Where are you? If you're not walking with God and you've not become a Christian, do you believe that Jesus is the Son of God? Do you believe that you need to change your life from a life of sin to a life of righteousness? Do you believe you need to confess sin before men? And if so, why not be immersed for the remission of your sins, calling on His name? For those of us that are Christians, we've done that. Are we walking daily with Him, Or do we need to get right with Him through prayer, confession of sin, and repentance? Plead with you. Whatever the case is, let us help. Do something about it right now. Step out and come forward while together we stand and sing this invitation song.